vampires, made-up personalities, and a literal non-stop ego-driven rant. That's what we're talking about, which if you've been following the trial, then you'll know that we're going to be talking about those interviews with the psychologist and shrinks that Letecia Stauch did in her case, and we're going to talk about some of the highlights of them in today's video. Hello everybody and welcome back to the sofa, which is right there behind me, and Roscoe is actually sleeping underneath it. He's my little dog if you're new to the channel, and my name is Paul. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about some of the mental health evaluations that took place with Letecia and the testimony on the stands from those evaluators. Whoa, Mama Jama is all I have to say about these. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I would say my mouth was on the floor, but it was more like out of pure embarrassment for Letecia, number one, because I was like, girl, this is just not giving what you think it's giving, right? Now, I do want to say this. This is not to discount anyone who actually might have these legitimate things going on. I do not believe that about Letecia, so that is the standpoint that I'm coming from. I think she is literally making this all up, trying to get out of trouble. So please don't misconstrue anything that I say as like this generalized thing as to somebody who might legitimately be dealing with this, because I also feel like people like Letecia, who are, essentially I think they're mocking people that really do have these issues going on, and they're not doing any kind of favors to those communities, right? Because literally what she's doing is very damaging, and it's self-serving because she's trying to get out of trouble for what she did to Gannon, right? That's literally all this is. So here's how the video is going to work. I'm going to put up some clips. The first clips are going to be listening to some of those mental health professionals talking about their experience with Letecia. And then we're going to do a few little highlights of Letecia's interviews. Now, this, if you're not watching the trial like verbatim, like as it goes, this is a part of it I highly implore you to watch the entire thing, because literally, y'all, this video could have been like hours and hours long. There's so much of it. So I've just condensed down to a few parts here to use as talking points. But if there was a part of the trial that I'm like, you gotta watch this, okay, at least, you have to watch this, because you are seeing the real Letecia Stauch fully on display. Manipulation, ego, all that stuff. So anyways, let's get that first clip up.
I just want to talk about the vampires some more. Did you talk to Miss Stauch about her experience with vampires during your forensic interview?
I did.
Tell the jury about that.
Miss Stauch introduced a vampire called Justice. She said that there was a button in her cell that she could summon Justice, Jasper, perhaps Patrick, if I remember correctly. She said she had been introduced to vampires when she lived in Alaska previously, and they used to go door to door like Jehovah's Witnesses. And she didn't really offer them in any kind of meaningful way, like wasn't explaining anything or trying to use that information necessarily, but she certainly referenced them throughout the interview.
Did she tell you where she got these names for these so-called vampires she's talking about?
She directed me to the movie Twilight.
Well, coming in hot for clip number one. That was almost a little bit too much to serve up for the first one. I'm going to go ahead and apologize, right? This is giving you a taste of what we're about to get into, okay? I was like, we'll give her an A for creativity, okay? No, hands down for that. Now, can we please take a moment and just, I'm going to put a screenshot up here of her with her head on the desk the entire time through these things. There's basically no other way to be, because if I was her, I would do the same thing, but I would be coming from a place of, oh my God, I am so horrified, number one, at what I've done, but number two, I can't believe that I went to these links to try and get out of trouble. Now, if you're not familiar with the case, Letecia has been accused of taking the life of her stepson, Gannon. He was 11 years old at the time, and she has basically come up with every possible story to get out of trouble. And her last ditch effort, in my opinion at least, is she is pleading like, I had a moment of insanity, and she's also specifically referencing DID, dissociative identity disorder. She had other personalities, this type thing. And the evidence that has come out so forth in the case I'm not a lawyer or doctor or anything like that, so again, these are just my opinions, but I don't see any way that she would get out of this, right? There's so much damning evidence that speaks otherwise of trying to cover this up, so on and so forth. So this is kind of par for the course is what I'm getting at. You know, we've heard from her in letters that peanut butter sandwiches are talking to her in jail. People are out to get it. All this kind of telltale signs that, in my opinion, someone is taking some superficial side effects, or, you know, I don't know what you call it, things of these, you know, issues or mental issues, and trying to really exaggerate them. And one thing to watch these clips with in the frame of mind, or through the lens of, is I think that what she's doing, first of all, I think that's what she's doing. Number one, she's completely exaggerating this, and I think that it is painfully obvious. And the doctors will, in essence, say this.
In the mental health notes from the state hospital, it noted that she specifically asked staff whether they could tell when a patient was faking instability or mental illness.
Well, if they couldn't before, they did after Letecia, okay? And this is the type of evidence that I'm talking about that's so prevalent in this case, are things like this. She is the ultimate, let me go to Walmart and buy all of the tools and stuff I'll use in the crime kind of a criminal, right? Use my debit card, probably return something, talk to the manager, be all up on that Walmart video, and then be shocked when it's introduced into evidence. Now, I'm not saying that has happened in this case, but if you follow true crime, if you follow here at the channel, we always talk about how so many of these criminals go to Walmart and do these very obvious things on tape, on video. And Letecia just seems to be that type. I mean, for God's sakes, the last thing you want to do when you're trying to fake stuff is ask the people who are jailing you if they can recognize when somebody's faking. I mean, give me a break.
Different aspects of herself. So, for example, sometimes she feels more compassionate, or sometimes she feels more competitive when she's playing sports, or sometimes she lacks empathy when she's around her family. But she did not talk about or specifically delineate having different personalities in the way that she did during our sanity evaluation.
So again, you know, when you hear from these different doctors, and she's getting up there, she meaning Letecia, and giving different stories, which has been on brand for her throughout this entire trial. Different stories, can't keep up with the lies. I mean, even before the trial started, and I should have said case. I mean, she gave numerous stories as to what really happened with Gannon, because she's just going from thing to thing. Now, the one thing I do think that I believe is that, yes, she does move from thing to thing to thing, and I think that's meaning emotion. And I think that's part of what happened to poor little Gannon on that fateful evening, morning, whenever she took his life, or that series of events started. I think he was doing something that just set her off. And I think moments before, she could have been a normal, for her version, normal, going about her day. And then he did something that just set her off. I mean, I agree, and I certainly agree that when her statement of, I sometimes don't have empathy around my family, I mean, we can see that.
And was that of note to you? Because I know the big picture is coming on the insanity evaluation, but the first contact with her, you asked her directly about dissociative identity disorder or multiple personalities, and she denied that at that point?
Yeah, she definitely didn't endorse it in terms of the criteria for dissociative identity disorder and how they're written. So her response to us was pretty benign. We didn't think very much of it.
Oh, but now she's really trying to cling on to that. And again, this is ultimately what is going to do Letecia in, is the fact that she's told so many lies and gone with so many different narratives. You know, the fact of the matter is, and again, this is just my opinion, is that something set her off. She did something that her end result was the best decision to make, was to take Gannon's life. I personally think she caused some form of harm to him that there was no going back. And now, whether that was he said, I'm going to tell Dad, or he was unable to go to school and show injuries, something occurred that you couldn't go back from, and that was the beginning of the end for him. I think she did this in her right mind. I think she knows she was wrong, and to me the evidence shows that she knows that, because she's done nothing but try and lie and cover it up ever since.
Needless to say, did you make some diagnosis of Ms. Stout based on what you knew during the competency evaluation?
Yes.
And what diagnosis did you reach for Ms. Stout?
We ultimately diagnosed her with a personality disorder, specifically a specified personality disorder, noting borderline and narcissistic features.
Tell the jury about that. What does that mean?
I mean, did she not hit the nail on the head with that? Now, what's interesting is to listen to what the doctors do call her out on. I shouldn't say call her out on, but like the diagnoses that they're coming up with her, because they're so accurate, right? And it has nothing to do with, yeah, she probably didn't know what she was doing in that evil moment. It's more like, this is who she is as a person, and she has put that on full display for the public to see.
I want to say best delineated by her public defender at that time. When we consulted with the public defender, she was the one who described an intense reactivity of emotion to different things, that just somebody who goes from 0 to 100 very quickly.
I mean, have we not seen that this whole time? And then also, again, reverting back to the day, the chain of events that took place with Gannon, and really even before that, or, you know, when she was a free woman, you see her behavior here in court and trial during the case. Imagine a day with her. So this is where, you know, my heart breaks for her kids, for Gannon, for anyone that was really having to deal with this woman, right? Because I think it was probably a nightmare. And I mean, this to me just kind of gives us a bigger picture, a clearer picture, I should say, of what took place with Gannon. I think that seeing her emotional reactions to things that just go from here to there to everywhere, you know, and I'm like, okay, now put into that mix kids being kids, you know, an 11-year-old boy being an 11-year-old boy, whatever. This was not a stable human being to be in charge of that at all.
In terms of narcissistic features, she really touted her intelligence and her abilities. And when she spoke to us about her treatment in the jail, her expectations as it pertained to how she would not proceed with her defense, but how attorneys should treat her, there was some notable entitlement in that, that gave us a hint that there might be some narcissistic features in there as well.
Again, read her like an ABC 1, 2, 3 story, okay? I mean, can you imagine? So here's the thing. I mean, literally, we've seen this with Letecia, right? I mean, this narcissism, this entitlement, listening to her, the letters that she's written, her talking to officers, people like that, it's this insane level of entitlement that she presents. Now, all the while, at least for me, and I don't know about y'all, but as I watch her during these things, like, you know, in the escape video or the letter she wrote to the judge and her attorneys and all this stuff, you know, I can't help but think, well, did you provide this level of care and courtesy to Gannon and your other kids? I highly doubt it, right? We certainly know not with Gannon. You know, I mean, look at what happened to the poor little thing. And so to then know that what she did and the horrific level of it, and then to see her have this expectation and entitlement has been so infuriating. So I absolutely loved that this was noted in what was really going on, because they're showing us the real Letecia. Letecia wants us to think that, you know, damn Team Edward, Team Jacob, drop which one you were in the comments, you know, that they were talking to her and doing all that, telling her to do all this crazy stuff and all that. But the real Letecia is entitled. The real Letecia exhibits these narcissistic signs that the doctors are talking about, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And she does it. You can just watch the clips we're going to watch and you can see this, right? She is trying so hard to sell a story that nobody is buying. Now, speaking of a hard story to sell, let's go ahead and watch some clips of Letecia. Buckle your seatbelts, please.
Minutes ago, you said you hear voices that they're all your personality.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah, and the devil. But you know, there's always the devil. The devil is trying to tell you to do something. Like when I was on the heights of January 26, the devil was telling me to jump off the heights because it had to be a white family to jump off the heights. That's the devil. That's like cosmic powers trying to like come in and intervene. That's going to be with all of us. You know what I'm saying? The closer you are to God, the devil's going to come get you all the time. You know what I mean? But as far as like, you know, I don't believe in this whole thing that people say, and no disrespect to y'all, even jobs, but for me, I don't believe in this whole thing where people say, oh, these people are talking to them. These are your cosmic powers in your personalities. Like, all my personalities will go talking to me and be like, why don't you just slap that girl? And I'll be like, no, I'm not slapping her. Like, those type of things. But I don't think drugs with these people beyond this whole best thing and maybe doing that stuff. Like, none of that. But there's always the devil that has you to do that. You know what I mean? Like running a Jeep off in the form of chance for you to run a Jeep off. You know what I mean? But I don't believe in the other stuff. So, you know.
Cannot roll my eyes hard enough. I'm talking a physical reaction to listening to her talk. I mean, my God. Y'all, I cannot with her. I don't know what it is. Okay. I mean, it's the female version of Daryl Brooks. Okay. It's like, it elicits that kind of anger. And this is not healthy. This speaks to me more than it does anything else. Why does she make me this angry? So here y'all, I'm sorry. This whole thing, when I watched it, I was like, it's so obvious she's making this up. That's the devil. Okay, that's all my personalities, you know, and I'm just like, ugh. Yeah. It's like she read a pamphlet on DID. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe there was like one in the waiting room somewhere or something like that. She read like these things and was like, okay, I'm going to say the devil did it. Or maybe it was Edward and Jacob, you know. But regardless, going into this, I bet these doctors were like, please, you know. And of course, they're professional, they have to take themselves seriously. Now, if you've been following the case, you'll know that these evaluations took forever, okay? Well, we already knew what kind of an inmate she was. Like, she was going to be difficult, right? So I'm like, okay, there's that. But, I mean, now seeing this, I'm like, oh, please. They were probably having to wade through so much, you know, BS to just get to what was really there. I mean, someone needs to literally just take these people out to dinner when this trial's over. They deserve a filet mignon and whatever else they want.
So you don't believe in witch hunter stuff?
Right. I be seeing people come in and they be on meds and they be swearing up and down, like, you know, like, oh, these people were telling them to do this. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? It's only going to be the devil. Like, the devil told me to jump off a hot stove. Different. It ain't going to be just random people sitting out somewhere telling you this. Like, this ain't how it works. You know what I mean? Yes, does my different personalities tell me to do different things? Yes, but that's still a part of me, just in a separate world. That's not, you know, I don't know. I just feel like they be just a little bit emotional in that stuff. I believe in, if they want to say anything wrong, that's the devil or that's yourself.
I mean, it makes no sense. And I think that's what she's trying for. I think she's trying to pretend that she's not pretending. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it comes off as so just cringy and like, what are you talking about? So it's like she's trying to pretend that she has other personalities, but that's normal to her. Because in a given day, like, I could sit here literally and be like, I mean, I talk to myself in my head all the time. Sometimes I answer, okay? And so I think she's trying to like go for that route in this, what she's talking about. But I mean, this is not how this works, right? For what she's aiming for, okay? She's aiming for someone else did this, you know, in my opinion. And that's not how this works. And of course, going with the devil talk and, you know, well, these people say that other people are telling them to do this, and that's not how that works. It doesn't make sense, and I just feel like the doctor saw right through this.
If I'm in a different world, like if I go to a world like Janelle's world, I see everything Janelle sees. But that's because I've created those worlds. I've been able to be like, I know what Janelle does. Or if I go to Christina Browning and I'm doing gymnastic stuff around cell, like I know that I can make a balance beam, or, you know, I can put apparatus out or whatever. But I know those are things that I leave this place to go to that place, so I put them. You see what I'm saying? It's not something that, you know, there's, you know, oh, that looks like the sun is in here. Like, no, it's not like that. I actually created those worlds. I know what goes in there. I put it there. You know what I mean?
I think she's talking about make-believe, right? I mean, any of us could sit here in our little room and be like, okay, I'm going to do a balance beam and do make-believe stuff. I mean, she has to be bored, right? I mean, my God, she's sitting in, I'm assuming, a little cell all by herself most of the day. So of course she's going to do stuff and make it up and yada yada yada. Now again, in my opinion, I think that it would fare better for her. Well, clearly she wants to get a not guilty by reason of insanity. I mean, come on, right? I think probably what she's hoping for, at best case scenario, is to be sent to like a mental health facility as opposed to a prison. And of course that's probably going to fare well for anybody, I would think. I mean, to me, going to a prison on her charges is not going to be a cute look. Now, I don't know how that would fare for a mental health facility, and I don't know if that would gain her more sympathy, if that makes sense. But I don't see any way that that would happen with the evidence that's been presented, because I don't think she's presented anything believable that she was not in her right mind. I think she was very clearly in her right mind. It's just Letecia's right mind, at least from what I've seen, in my opinion, is the world revolves around her. And she can't see out of that. And that's not any kind of a DID or this or that. That's just, being full of yourself.
Like every time I go to court, I tell Miss Robinson, the lady out here, she goes with me to court, I'll be like, bye-bye, Miss Robinson, I'm leaving. She's like, don't leave yet. And I just go to a whole other world. Like sometimes I'll be calling my name. She'll have to like snap me out of it. And I'll just be in a whole different thing, doing all different stuff. But I've created that as a way to deal with things in life. It's not something that, that is like a chemical imbalance or something, I don't think.
Now, funny that nobody talks about this part of her or seen any evidence of this before this happened, right? So maybe this is a recent onset thing in the last couple of years that she's created. And I have no doubt the games that she plays while being incarcerated, because she probably flips between she can't help herself to expose herself when she feels like her entitlement isn't being fulfilled. And what I mean by that is, if she wants something in jail and they're not going to give it to her, the real Letecia is going to come out. But then her default thing is going to be, oh wait, I'm supposed to be this over here, so I'm going to sit and stare for a minute now. But she already showed her cards because she didn't get the kind of meal that she wanted, type thing. And so these are some things we've read in letters and whatnot about her wanting a kosher meal or this or that or blah 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 blah. And she writes these letters that someone who's very in touch with themselves would write, and also very full of themselves, but then in the meantime I'm like, oh, I'm sure she's trying to pull like little stereotypical characteristics of mental issue A, B, and C to try and pull one over on everybody.
If you look at that report where the drive here, that lady was trying to get me with her gun, and like you can see on the camera, well, I kept on telling her, like, I knew exactly what she was over there doing and thinking, and I kept like, I know what you're doing over here. I know you're out to get me. You're trying to shoot me with your gun. Like, I knew all that. You know what I mean? So, like, that was a time, an example where it was very heightened, where I was, like, all over the place thinking they were out to get me with the stuff. And that I was trying to read what she had going on, and she was trying to shoot me with her gun. I don't know if you saw that report, but, like, you could see it in there where I keep looking at the cameras, telling them this.
Now, I didn't really see any of that during the recorded version of that situation that we saw. And what I'm talking about is the body cam footage of when she tried to, or not when she tried to, when she attacked the officer when she was being transported. And you hear now, she was pointing the gun, she was trying to get me. Again, these are stereotypical things, this paranoia she's trying to present of everyone's out to get me. Which she does. I mean, to me, she seems like that type person anyways, but not to the level she's trying to present it to. I just think that she's someone who constantly thinks that because she's so painfully insecure. And just like when she was in the Facebook groups and doing all this and doing the media interviews, that was like this paranoia thing, but she was guilty. She knew she was guilty. She knew everybody was onto her, so she was trying to save her name. I think that's really all it comes down to.
The whole incident with the guy trying to tell me I hit somebody. I didn't really hit somebody, but these people were out to get me the whole time, and I kept telling them, like, look, there ain't no way I hit somebody. Y'all were setting me up, like.
This whole thing she's doing, y'all are setting me up, okay, I didn't hit somebody. She just keeps going with it with everything. And again, I don't believe her. I don't believe any word that she says with this. And this is the part that angers me, in addition to obviously what she's done and her behavior and whatnot, is that she's just so low that she's going to try and utilize these false narratives of mental health and things of this nature to try and get out of any accountability for what she's done to Gannon.
It happens a lot. Because like I can see somebody walking on the street and I'll be like, that looks like him. One of the triggers is red and black. Okay, and I know you have red and black on.
Now, what she's talking about here is her previous experience with SA being done to her when she was younger. And so she's saying that, you know, people that look like her alleged abusers and whatnot, these are triggers, and that red and black is a trigger for her, which is conveniently what one of the investigators talking to her is wearing. Now, is any of this true? I do not know, because I don't believe anything that comes out of her mouth, so I don't know if this really happened to her or not when she was younger like she claims. So I can't say, but I do think the whole thing of like red and black is a trigger for me was probably made up on the fly because it was suiting for that moment.
You know, and basically with the whole, like, whenever you come in with the whole, like, James, sorry, if their person's name was James, I'd always cringe and like, you know what I mean? When I read, this sounds bad, God forgive me. When I read the scripture, the book of James, I can't even go to the scripture in the book of James without having those flashbacks. And that's bad.
Even the Bible triggers her, which does not surprise me. You know, I'm surprised it doesn't burst into flames in her hand, to be honest. That's probably really what's going on. She's trying to come up with an excuse not to hold it because she knows, like, that thing is going to just ignite if I touch it. So, but I mean, she's just, this right here, just going on and on and on. I'm like, girl. But also with her, like, I have to sit here and wonder, I'm like, was there something that she did that she didn't want to read the Bible, and so now she's trying to make up a lie for that? Because she makes up lies for every single thing after the fact, and it's so utterly exhausting.
Apart from Maria, there's a level of conscious awareness about it. Would you say it's like daydreaming in terms of other lives, other personalities?
Yeah, it is actually a whole world. But daydreaming to me would be just somebody having like a good imagination. You know what I mean? No, it's like a whole entirely different world. Like, for example, if you were to talk to Harmony can tell you exactly what it was like to be abused in depth, like detail by detail. Every sexual part that questions she'd want to answer, she could do for you. You could have been. So I try not to say that's like daydreaming because that's like real. You know what I mean? Where if, you know, I think the other way is to like explain it. Maria, like I said, she doesn't have awareness of everybody else. It's just her world, and she's protecting me. And there's not people consistent in her world. Like, for example, Maria wouldn't know you.
I'm dying to know what documentary or whatever she watched and then came up with all this. Now, what we've just seen is she's talking about the different personalities within her and talking about them and whatnot and what they do and, you know, their role or whatever. And again, I think she's making every last bit of this up, y'all. I think she's making every little bit up. And you heard her in the beginning where they were talking about the different, like, no, this isn't daydreaming. This is a whole world. This is completely real. Well, when she was talking earlier about doing the, you know, doing gymnastics and stuff like that, I think that Letecia, I don't even think she's daydreaming. I just think this is completely made up. I don't think this is real at all. I think she sat in her cell and cooked this stuff up. And I think the doctors can see right through it. And that they realize that, no, what we're really dealing with is a personality disorder and some narcissism and, you know, this kind of stuff that they've already cited her as having.
Grab the gun like from Edgar. Because I thought, as soon as I see him go to the straight back room, I'm going to instantly go into protection mode. I went to go grab the gun like from Edgar. Because I thought the person in the cape, I didn't know who it was. What happened with the whole Michael the Archangel, the whole thing that happened with my stepdad, and when I grabbed it from him, the gun hits me and then hits the person in the cape. At the time, I didn't know who the person in the cape was. Paul, standing on top of the bed. I didn't know at the time it was standing on top of the bed until later on when I sat down with my attorneys and we put it together and realized it. I didn't know until that point that it was Gannon standing. Because prior to that, I thought the whole like cape thing. We've put it together over and over and over, and I sit and I cry with them. I did this with them and everything. The only thing that comes to my mind is that the way the cover was wrapped, that's what had to look like the cape. Was the way that he had the cover wrapped around him.
Well, okay, another version of what happened to Gannon. So this was a new one to me when I watched this. I was like, oh, okay, here's another one, another make-believe one, very make-believe one. Again, how many stories have we heard now as to what happened to Gannon? And then just pretend for a moment, okay, let's just entertain the sofa that we're going with this. Then my next question is, let's explain all the actions after that. Why in God's name wouldn't you have called? Because she says multiple times, I ain't stupid. I know what to do in an accident. I've watched kids for a long time. You pick up the phone and you get help. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, if this was the case that you thought it was a damn archangel and all this kind of stuff, so you were going to shoot the archangel, whatever, okay, she's trying to sell here, then why not get help right away? Well, look at all that she went through and all the harm done to Gannon, right? This is where she just doesn't stand a chance. It's just, and nor does she need to, right? She doesn't need to be in a mental health facility. She needs to be in prison. And again, I go back to this where I think, what was a daily, just run-of-the-mill day like with this woman, and especially with a disagreement, because look at what she's willing to go through over something major like this, trying to cover up a gruesome, horrifying murder of her stepson. Imagine what she was doing, like, you know, just being sneaky and manipulative. Maybe, you know, I spent too much money over here, let me lie about it, or let me, whatever she was doing, because I can tell you she probably had a lot of skeletons in her closet, right? Just runs all over me. I fear for what Gannon lived through at her hands during his lifetime. I mean, that obviously we know the end, right? But I'm talking leading up to that, you know, behind the scenes. You know, my heart just aches for him, and it aches for his family members that love him. Now, if you're still watching, as a matter of fact, drop blue hearts in the comment for Gannon. And that's it. I appreciate you watching, and until next time when we gather around my little water bottle and coffee mug, I'll see you soon.